Hey y'all, and welcome to the Max. Today I'm going to be showing y'all exactly how to pressure can butter. Now, using these methods, you can actually can a number of things. I go over a lot of basic one-on-one canning instructions in my previous video, and if you guys haven't seen that, y'all please go to check that out. There are a lot of things in the Ball Blue Book that you can actually can using these step-by-step instructions. So let's get started. Today I'm canning homemade butter. This is butter that I have made from our raw milk that have spun in an electric churn. I just washed that butter out. I've stored it in the freezer. Actually, you guys can see it right here. I have stored it in the freezer in these balls of butter right here. I have 6 just in this container. I want to get those out of my freezer to free up some freezer space and over on my shelf where they're easily accessible for my cooking and my family. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to go over a lot of basic canning. Now, a lot of the teaching that I'm going to be doing is for someone who has never canned anything ever. And I cannot stress enough, if you've not seen my Canning 101 where I share how to can and mostly a lot of tips and tricks that you will need to know before you get canning, y'all please go check that out. It will be a huge benefit for you. I'm not using this book, y'all, sorry. Not using it in this one. I'm showing y'all how to can, but I'm putting up something that I needed to put up. So I'm gonna be canning butter. I have my All-American pressure canner. I have already gone through all of the instructions that tells me exactly how to operate my canner, and I'm assuming that you guys have already watched my video of Canning 101, vent steam, emergency release valve. I don't can without a gauge. I just don't like it. I want to see where my pressure is. So a pressure canner. I also have ball canning lids. Always make sure you check your lids. The seals want to be intact. You do not want to use a lid where the rubber seal is damaged or there's any deformity. Same goes with your rings. You do not want to use any rings that have been rusted or any dents. You want your rings and your lids to be in perfect condition, because if there are any deformities and this does not seal, well, you guys all know what's going to happen. Your food is not going to stay safe and it is going to spoil. So lids are a big deal. Y'all don't go to the dollar store and get those lids trying to save a couple of cents. Y'all know that I'm very frugal and I like to buy things that are cheaper when possible, but this is not one of those. You want good quality lids for your jars. Also, I have taken all of my jars. I'm gonna be doing pints today. I have checked all of my jars. Y'all see this chip right here in this one. Do not use chipped or cracked jars. I have inspected all of my jars and I have put them over into water and they are at a full rolling boil. I have also prepared a pot that has hot water in it, but you do not want to boil these. You just want your lids hot, do not boil. So for my butter, I have just dropped it down into this big pan. I have melted my butter, but you're gonna actually see me skim this off the top. So I have already prepared my butter. If y'all are doing pickles, if y'all are doing peas, if y'all are doing potatoes, whatever you may be doing, like I said, mine is butter. You want to prepare that food now and get it ready based on your instructions to go over into your sterilized jars. I have also gotten all of my equipment out, my jar lifter. I also have a debubbler. I also have a magnetic wand, because when I pick those lids up, I don't want to put my fingers in that hot water. This is handy dandy little finger saver right here. Also, when you go to pick your lids up, you want to avoid touching this as much as possible. Even though your hands are clean, I try to work from this side of my lid and not this side. I don't want to touch this if at all possible. I also have my funnel ready. as well as my pressure canner and my weight. I have everything set up over here. I have a couple of clean measuring cups that I'm going to be using to fill my jars with as well. Some vinegar, and I have a couple of paper towels that I'm going to be cleaning every lid on my jar with. The reason being is it goes back to the importance of the lids, y'all. If there is anything left on these rings when you put your lid on, the funnel will help protect some of that because your stuff will be going in here. That is not to say that something won't get on your glass ring up here. You want to make absolutely sure that that is clean, because if anything gets on that, and you put your lid on and then your band on, and there's something in between that rubber seal and your glass, chances are it may not seal, and you've wasted your time, your energy, and your food and money, and you do not want to do that. As I'm preparing my butter, one of the first things I want to do, I have my butter melted down. I just melted it on low, but you see that there is the film on top of that butter. I want to go ahead and make sure that that stays at a medium-high heat, but I want to take that film off. I'm not gonna chunk it. It can be used in biscuits or pancakes or whatever I'm making. I'm not gonna chunk that, but I don't want it going over into my jars. Now that I have those particles removed off of my butter, it is time to get my butter in my jars. Now, I just have a clean towel that I'm gonna lay down right here because I will drip and make a little bit of a mess. I'm gonna start right now getting my jars out. These jars, if you can see, this is just the lid to my jars, and they are very, very hot. So I'm gonna take my jar lifter, and everything that I'm doing right now is very hot. My jars are hot, my butter is hot, and the water in the bottom of my canner, my water level, my instructions from my manual that tells me how much water I need in my canner, it is also hot. So now I'm ready to start getting my butter over into my jars. Now I have my really hot jar out and my butter. So I want to put my funnel over first. That is going to help protect some of this from getting butter all over it. I also have some jars in the back. Now my butter goes in. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to stop my butter at a 1-inch headspace. Once I have it there, I'm going to take my funnel off and clean with vinegar. I don't want anything to be on this lid. And now I need to get a lid. I'm going to avoid touching that side if possible. Goes on my jar. These are also warm. Nothing is wrong with my band. It will go on. Twist until it's tight. Now I want to get this over in my pressure canner. Well, I'm simply going to repeat that process by getting my hot sterilized jars out, filling them with butter, cleaning the tops off, putting my lids and my bands on, and getting them over into my pressure canner. Okay, y'all, I have all of my jars down in my pressure canner. Now, one thing that I did not mention, because it will be in your instructions when you learn your pressure canner, is I do have a small little rack on the bottom of my jars, and it's so that my jars are not sitting on direct heat. So there is a little space. It comes with your pressure canner. So I did fail to mention to make sure that that was in there and in place. Now my jars were prepped. They're all ready. They're over in my canner. Now here comes the important parts right here. Okay, my lid. Before I put this on, I need to check my vent and make sure there's nothing clogging my vent. There is nothing in my vent. And now I want to get my lid on. Now, your lid going on is not gonna look like mine going on if you don't have an All-American. I have these little latches that catch, I twist, then on my canner, you will see these little knobs that come up and screw on. For the purpose of instructions, following your manual, I have these notches that line up. Then I check my sides to make sure that I haven't pushed this one down too far. They're level. So I'm gonna take opposite ends and begin to screw down opposite ends. Again, I have an All-American. Yours is gonna look different if you have anything else. Opposites go up, opposites screw down. What I'm doing when I do that is I'm making sure that everything stays level here. Now my heat is on and my heat is on high. So I'm not gonna do anything right now because I have to let this thing vent steam for 10 minutes. Well, I don't have steam right now, so I have to just wait until I start getting a full steam from my vent. Hence the name vent steam. While I'm waiting in between my processes of canning, I'm usually wiping my counter space down with vinegar, washing any dishes that need to be washed. You know, in my case, after I get done with you guys, I have 9 pints over in my canner, but I still have more butter in my pot. So once we get done processing here, we'll have more to do. I'm gonna go ahead and start melting that butter down. Like I said, cleaning up my workspace, making sure that I have enough jars that are sterile, making sure that I have enough lids that are gonna be warm, because when I get done processing, I wanna jump right into my next batch. I don't wanna have to spend the extra time when my canner is ready to go again, prepping for the next batch. I wanna go ahead and have all that work done. That's what I do in my in-between time. I'm about to wipe the counters off, melt down my next batch of butter. If you were doing any other vegetable, if you had more potatoes to cut up or cucumbers to peel or whatever you were gonna do, this would be the time that you could do it. That would save you time in between your batches. If not, you can spend that time washing all of your dishes, cleaning up from your prep work while your pressure canner is going through its steps to prepare to process. Please keep in mind, just like I mentioned in my Canning 101 class, while you're dealing with glass jars, it is important to be mindful of the temperature of your jars. My water is still really hot where I've had my jar sterilizing. I would not want to take a cold or room temperature jar, put that over into the really hot water, because your jar obviously will crack. There are different ways to pack your food, raw pack versus cold pack. You guys need to jump over and watch that video. I did what would be considered a hot pack, where I had everything hot. My jars were hot, my butter was hot, my lids was hot, and my water in my pressure canner was hot. Everything was hot. Know the difference between those. Also, y'all pay attention to the acidic food, low acidic food, why you would need to water bath versus pressure can. All of those things you can check out on the Pressure Canning 101 workshop that I did for you guys. So y'all be sure to check that out. Those tips and tricks are gonna greatly help you while you're canning in the kitchen. Now I am at a steam. You can not only hear it, but if I put my hand over it, I can feel the steam. So now I want to set my timer for 10 minutes. As you can see, my timer just went up for 10 minutes. I'm steaming super, super heavy, and actually the pressure has already built up to about 5. At this point in time is when I want to add my 10 pounds of pressure. So I have been steamed for 10 minutes. My next step is to add my 10 pounds of pressure. So y'all heard me teach you in my canning 101 class. Now you are seeing me do it now. I've been steamed for 10 minutes. I've got my weight set to 10 pounds of pressure. Now we're not gonna hear anything right now. Now you will see on my stove that I am on high, but I do not want to remain there. Once I get to 10 pounds of pressure and my jiggler starts jiggling, which is only gonna take just a minute, because I'm already at about 7 or 8 right now, just that fast. Once I hit that mark, I will turn my heat down, because if I leave my heat on super, super high, even though my jiggler is jiggling, it can't jiggle fast enough to keep my pressure where I want it. So I'm gonna turn my heat down just a little bit so that I can stay at 10 pounds of pressure. Okay, here we go. So we're almost jiggling. We're almost to 10. So I know it's just gonna start jiggling. There we go, y'all. I'm at 10 pounds of pressure. Now what I want to do is turn mine down, because I do not want the heat to continue to build in my pressure canner. So mine is on about a medium high. Now we're at the spot where I set my timer for the amount of processed time. For some reason in my head, when I got in here this morning, I was thinking that butter was only gonna take me about 30 to 40 minutes. But when I went back to my notes, pints are actually 75 minutes. So I'm gonna be setting my timer to do my 9 pints of butter for 75 minutes. When my timer goes up, do y'all remember what I preached in my Canning 101 class? Don't do anything. When my timer goes off, I will not touch anything, only kill the heat. So let's get my minutes started for 75 minutes, and when my timer goes off, I will only kill the heat. Do not touch the weight, do not touch your pressure canner. I'm at a point where we're gonna check at 52 minutes. I'm still at 10 pounds of pressure, so at this point in time, I'm going to do nothing. Everything is just like it is, and I will see you guys back in 52 minutes. Okay, y'all, my timer just went off. And that's what I need to do. Nothing but kill my heat. That's all I do. Turn it off, leave it alone. You'll hear it in just a minute. This is gonna quit jiggling because my heat source is off. It'll take a minute or so. My heat source is off. My 75 minutes have been up. And now I will start to pressure down. Don't touch anything. So you can hear it already pressuring down, and I'm not gonna do anything to this. Make sure that you don't touch it, because it is still under a great deal of pressure and it is very, very hot. Now from here, I will just glance at my gauge. I know that it takes about 10 or 15 minutes for it to pressure down. I will just glance at my gauge in about 10 minutes and see where my pressure is. Once I get to 0, I will take my weight off. Okay, y'all, I am all the way to 0 on my gauge. I'm all the way to 0. Now and only now, I'm going to take my weight off. Don't grab it with your bare hands because it's hot. You're gonna hear it steam just a little bit. So you can see it's still releasing some steam. I'm gonna let all of that steam come out before I take my lid off. Okay, y'all, all my steam is out, so now I'm going to open my canner like I closed my canner, each side at a time. Y'all, please remember that although it is not currently under pressure, it is still very hot, and I have a lot of steam that's gonna come out of here. So I'm going to open my lid away from me, like that right there, so I don't get steamed in the face. Now my cans are very, very, very hot. So I'm actually gonna leave my lid off for a couple of minutes before I even touch them with my jar lifter. Now that my inner pot has cooled off just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and grab one with my jar lifter, and I'm gonna put a towel on my hand just to help support my jar as I walk across the kitchen with it. I have a spot on the other side of the kitchen that is just kind of out of the way where I will let them cool. You can see that it is so hot, it is still literally boiling on the inside. That movement is from the water inside. It is still very, very hot. One of the things you'll want to remember is if you decide to do a second batch, you will need to make sure that you get your water level back up to where it's supposed to be, because you do not ever want your canner to run dry. When it is steaming, it is essentially releasing water vapors, which will cause your water level to go down. So if you do a second batch behind it, just remember to refill your water level to where it's supposed to go. And remember, the longer the amount of time, whatever it is that you're canning, the more vapor steam is going to be released. So you might want to err a little bit more on the heavier side of water. Something that doesn't pressure can as long is not going to release as much water, so your water level will be fine. But when you're pressure canning something for an hour or more, an hour and a half, it's going to release a lot of water, and you don't ever want your pressure canner to run dry, because not only could it damage your food and your jars, but it can also damage the bottom of your canner as well. Woohoo! Butter is done. Now, I will not mess with these. They have to cool, completely cool. Not even warm to touch, y'all, okay? Don't be tempted to start messing with your lids. Leave them alone until they completely cool. When they cool, you can go ahead and take your bands off. I like to wash my jars. It doesn't have to be like a dirty dish wash, okay? I just like to wash my jars off, then I dry them off really well, label them, and I also put the date. Then your butter is shelf stable, or whatever you can is shelf stable with no refrigeration. And remember, if you're doing something like peas or okra or squash, all of those things are already cooked. That's what I call quality fast food right there. Remember too, as my final thoughts, if you didn't watch the Canning 101, y'all please go check that out. I cover so much in details there. Not everything I do will be in this book. Not everything that I do or have done will be the same as you've seen from somebody else. I have actually watched somebody put up butter that did the open kettle method that I have talked about in my canning tour video. There are different methods. People do things differently. Not everybody's the same. I have actually watched somebody can butter just by sterilizing their jars, melting their butter down, and canned the butter. I chose not to do that. Always go and watch a lot of different methods, a lot of different ways. Pick what is best for you and your family after you have a wide view of different methods that can be done. You know, obviously you want to choose trusted sources. So I have done canning butter like this in my pressure canner before, and I really, really like it. It is a wonderful way to put fats on my shelf. I personally chose not to pressure can my butter because all of the meats that are recommended are all to be pressure canned. So I decided on this method to go along with the pressure canned method for putting up my butter. However, like I said, I have watched other people that have literally just warmed their butter, put it in their jars, and put it on the shelf. Now the last thing with butter, if you're actually putting butter on your shelf, is once these begin to cool down, you're gonna be able to see, this one is not a great one. This one is though. You can see the slight separation in this jar. So once this begins to cool down, and it is still very hot, I can feel it through this damp paper towel. What I will do is, I'm not going to do it right now, but once it begins to cool down, I'm going to take my butter and I'll give it a shake and put it down. I'll give the next one a shake and put it down. And all of that does is help mix those things together so your butter stays in one solid form and actually doesn't stay separated out. It is just something that I have always done from how I learned to put up butter. I will usually begin to shake mine about an hour or two after I've canned my butter. I will come by about every 30 minutes to an hour. It doesn't have to be a lot, and it doesn't have to be vigorous shakes. I simply just take my jar, turn it upside down, sit it back down, do that again in 30 minutes to an hour, and it just helps incorporate these separated parts that you see in the butter. It just helps separate those and put those back together so that when your butter solidifies, it is just one solid form that is over in your jar. I'm gonna say here too, not everybody does everything the same way. Just like with canning, just like with gardening, there are different people in different areas who have different ways of doing things. I'm just sharing with y'all the way that I do my canning. It has worked well for me. But I do, again, advise you, y'all go watch other people. Learn from me techniques that you may like. Go to someone else, watch them. Pick up techniques from them that you may like. And do what works best for you. There are so many different variations to canning. Someone might not use vinegar, somebody might use vinegar. Somebody might just have a totally different style of canning, and that's okay. Watch all of those things, as long as it's from a trusted source. Watch all of those ways and do what works best for you. But I hope with my Canning 101 class, letting y'all hear step by step, teaching you tips and tricks, and y'all being able to turn around and see me do canning step by step, starting with sterilizing my jars, prepping my jars. You know, y'all did not see me doing the debubbler, and that's because I was using full liquid. I didn't actually have any whole items of food that I was packing in my jars. I was simply pouring over liquids. But y'all remember those things from my Canning 101. You've seen me can, you've heard me teach you, now y'all go out and do it. You've heard it, you've seen it, now you can do it. Y'all got this. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Happy homesteading, y'all.